What's up, y'all? My name is JR, and for those of you who don't already know, I'm a huge movie and TV nerd. If you're new here, I appreciate you taking the time to check out my channel. I hope you'll consider sticking around and joining the film community I'm trying to build here on YouTube. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about my first impression of FX's limited series and reboot, Justified City Primeval. I'll probably do another video once the series is done, but I wanted to get out my initial thoughts about the reboot of one of my favorite TV shows. And with that being said, no more wasting time. Let's get into it. So I'll start off by admitting that I'm not typically a fan of reboots, primarily because I believe that if you as a filmmaker or showrunner have done your job for the first time, your story should have ended in a nice, comfortable spot. Comfortable enough for people to walk away from it feeling good about having invested their time in watching it. And if that's the case, then the only thing you can do by bringing it back is mess it up. It would be like making a decision to retake a test in school you already made an A on with the hopes of getting an A+. Nevertheless, I'll also admit that I was pretty happy when I heard the announcement that we were going to get a few more episodes of Deputy Marshal Raylan Givens. Because Justified was one of my favorite TV shows. A show that's in my top 100, in fact. And Raylan Givens, that's my guy. And after watching the first 2 episodes of the 8-episode limited series, I have to say, Timothy Olyphant is still as slick and charming as he was in the original show. In other words, he still does a great Raylan Givens. Now, having said that, I think the beginning of the story is a bit overly contrived. I mean, a U.S. Deputy Marshal in South Florida taking his daughter to a behavioral modification camp, and he just so happens to run into 2 criminals from Detroit who attempt to carjack him in the process. And I don't know, it just all felt a little too written for me. I personally would have much rather had Raylan simply catch the 2 of them in the commission of a crime, minus his daughter, and then just have the story jump off from there. But maybe that's just me. The acting was good overall, but I knew it would be. I think, other than Timothy Olyphant, Adelaide Clemens and Keith David are both bright spots in this show, even though David doesn't stick around for very long. And I especially like the casting of Anjanou Ellis-Taylor, Marin Ireland, and Norbert Leo Butz. Now, when it comes to Vivian Olyphant, however, I'm afraid the jury is still out. I did some math on this whole thing, and Willa was 4 when Justified ended back in 2014. Now, Vivian Olyphant is 19 or 20, and in my opinion, she just looks way too old to play 14 or 15. I feel like if the showrunners were just determined to have Timothy Olyphant's real-life daughter play his TV kid in this show, then they could have simply aged the character up a bit and made her like 17 or 18 or something. Maybe, about to head off to college, something like that. Despite the real world time lapse. But I digress. Despite feeling iffy about her casting and her performance so far, I guess she does have 6 more episodes to change my mind. So we'll see how that goes. Now, Boyd Holbrook as the new big bad seems to be working pretty well so far. And speaking of the character he plays, Clement Mansell, dude is an absolute psycho. Now, Holbrook doesn't quite have the charisma of Walton Goggins' Boyd Crowder, but then again, who does, right? I personally think the whole Boyd versus Raylan dynamic is what made Justified the show that it was. The fact that they basically grew up together in the same small town and that they were so much alike, and they dug coal together. Plus, the fact that Raylan could have easily ended up on the other side of the law, just like Boyd, was ultimately what made Raylan respect Boyd Crowder the man, even though he had to lock up Boyd Crowder the criminal. But I'll save all that for another video. The change in scenery for this iteration of the show is kind of cool, so the story has that going for it. it kind of makes the tone of the show feel different. And Raylan's kind of like a fish out of water in this particular story. Now, as for the story including Raylan's daughter at all, I'm not even quite sure how necessary she really is at this point. But, I mean, keep in mind, I haven't read any of the books, so I'm just talking about the show here. So far, it seems like she's only been included as a plot device. You know, someone that Clement Mansell can threaten as the impending showdown between he and Raylan becomes more and more certain. And I have to say, I definitely miss the presence of Winona, if I'm being completely honest. But I guess we'll see if the writers find a way to fill that void as the story moves forward. Now, the show currently has a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, but the audience score is much lower at only 64%, which feels like a pretty large disparity if you ask me. It has a Metascore of 79 based on only 23 critic reviews on Metacritic, with no user score as of yet. And it has an 8.6 out of 10 on IMDb, and that's based on 874 reviews. Now, if I myself had to interject, I would say that so far, I'd maybe give the show an 85% or so, which is equivalent to an 8.5 if you're thinking IMDb score. I think it's a show that certainly has the spirit of its predecessor, but it certainly also has some room for improvement. And I understand that for this particular installment, Elmore Leonard may have intentionally written an older Raylan, with a teenage daughter to be a bit less reckless and a bit more measured than he was in Fire in the Hole, which inspired the original TV show, Justified. But the Justified fan in me does hope that as the ball starts to roll a bit faster down this hill, we get a chance for Raylan to get up to some of his old gunslinger ways. But what do you guys think? Do you think this show has the same charisma as the original? Or do you think it was a mistake for FX to take us back down this road? Let me know in the comments. And for those of you who might be new to the channel, be sure to like and share this video. If you like the content, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you'll be notified whenever I drop a new video. Also, be sure to go check out themadscreenwriter.com for more television and film reviews and info on my upcoming film projects. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I got screenplays to write, and I'll catch y'all in the next video.